Imagine living every dream that you've ever had, except seeing it like a reality. An image of your city, for instance, with complete moving traffic patterns. A painting of your favorite artist, except now you can walk into it and touch every brushstroke in multi-dimension. These representations are called virtual worlds. And mark my words, pretty soon, they are going to be available to all of us. In these virtual worlds, you can't just see an image or an object, but you can actually interact with it, like we do now with our perceived reality. All of this is possible with the use of virtual reality. This virtual reality technology is already revolutionizing the way computers are used, transforming them from mere handy tools to something like a crystal ball where you could see into this world more vividly and gaze into it more deeply. Reality, as we know, is being replaced gradually, piece by piece, with software imitation. What we're witnessing now is a great humanistic advance. And of course, with it brings real risks. I'm Kavya Pearlman. I'm the founder of XR Safety Initiative. In the next 15 to 20 minutes, we will answer the very question, are we ready? And then we'll talk about, potentially explore the answers to it. On December 22nd, 2017, my friend Caroline Wong paid me a visit at my previous workplace, where I was the head of security protecting 2 virtual economies. Any gamers out here have probably heard of Second Life. Linden Lab, my previous employer, had also launched another virtual reality platform called Sensar. On this day, Caroline told me that she'd never been into virtual reality. I was like, all right. And I knew that she was pregnant, so I was like, okay, I know the perfect experience for you, Caroline. So I put her on this experience called Wonderful You. It's a journey of human embryo in the mother's womb, a developmental walkthrough of human life for the 9 months. It literally teaches you how the senses are developed, the 5 senses, the touch, smell, sight, sound, all of this. Needless to say, it was a very compelling experience for Caroline and for me to witness. I also like this picture particularly because it shows you that she is using a head-mounted display goggles to experience VR. And then she has these touch controllers right below the screen. You see the sensors that potentially coordinate and allow the system that you don't see in the picture. It's a heavy computing GPU, computing device that it's connected to. So it basically allows you to capture these coordinates and make use of it to potentially create an experience. There is a misconception that virtual reality is sort of isolating. Well, there is another aspect of virtual reality called social VR. Social VR is where you can potentially meet people in these environments, not only talk to them, interact with them, which is kind of what I did. Oftentimes, I'm faced with a problem of talking about dry security-like topics, and I'm often looking for ways to sort of make it fun. So in the next clip, I'll show you what I did is created a replica of Taj Mahal in virtual reality, brought in experts, and experts joined in from various countries. We played games, and we did what I called Cybersecurity Awareness Month. We organized a whole month-long celebration events in VR. So let's take a look. is another umbrella term called XR. And XR is referred to all of these realities under one umbrella term. XR means extended reality. So let me start with what is virtual reality. It is literally this digital, artificial, fully artificial environments that is digitally created. And then there is the augmented reality. Most of you are probably familiar with it, the Snapchat filter, which basically allows this digital object overlaid on the real world environment. And then there is the mixed reality, where you can use these digital environments, potentially a head-mounted goggle, to, let's say, operate a forklift, manipulate the real world parameters. So this XR is inevitably changing lives. We can do a lot of things. It's influencing a lot of industries, and there is predictions that a tremendous amount of marketplace would be captured by these technologies. Well, I'm only going to talk about just the two that I've highlighted in the light blue. So real estate. Imagine now you no longer have to travel to the location to potentially see a house that you're about to purchase. What if you live in India? My parents do. And I can actually show them, Mom, this is the place that I'm going to purchase. What do you think? And not only just show them by a construction, but even the lighting, the setting, how the sun rises and whatnot. And this already being used by apps like Zillow and whatnot. They're exploring these technologies. Automotive. Before we actually manufacture these parts, now you can actually create design in virtual reality and tinker with it. BMW, Audi, a lot of these companies are already using VR to potentially make sales of their new technology or collect surveys. A very amazing use case in terms of automotive. So anybody familiar with autonomous vehicle testing, level 5 testing is not even possible because you have to have, level 5 testing means there is no driver. And because the variables include human beings, it is almost impossible to test in real time. And that's where virtual reality comes in handy. And that's what is being used by lots of these organizations. However, it's bringing new risks along with it. Think about privacy. In the era of constant reality capture using your phone or virtual reality headset, which has inside-out tracking and all other behavioral data that is being captured, think about privacy. How can that be accounted for? What about security? And we'll talk about this shortly, but lots of these concerns would rise up because hackers wouldn't really care, would they? That it's virtual reality? Trust. We've already witnessed the inability to be able to separate the truth from the false with deepfakes and misinformation and propaganda. Some big tech organizations are already using these platforms to quote unquote defy reality. So where would we be able to trust in this scenario? And now I'm going to talk about some of the novel attacks that were discovered by the researchers of New Haven University under the guidance of Ibrahim Bajili, a good friend of mine and also the co-founder of XR Safety Initiative. They discovered these novel attacks and published them last year. And I am really thankful that they over and over allow me to present these to people to indicate what kind of risks could we be facing with the rise of these technologies. Before I go into it, however, I would like to play this clip where I was at Augmented World Expo. And this is basically, pay attention to the environment surrounding, where I'm playing a video game called Ghost with a friend, our EU advisor, Marco, and we're basically in a social VR environment killing bugs. Let's take a look. So the attack surface that used to be just your computer or your network or your backend devices, your AWS server, has now expanded. So this line, the blue line, that now shows the attack surface is not just your quote-unquote computer systems. It has now expanded to your living room, your objects that you surround. And we will see how that is relevant in a little bit. In this research, Abraham's team, basically used these Oculus and Vive devices. And the one assumption they made is they already compromised the machine that these devices are tethered to, which, in today's day and age, with phishing and targeted campaigns shouldn't be too difficult. Once that machine is compromised, they were able to successfully manipulate configurations, modify some of the configs, set up a command and control listening server, and modify and carry out some of these novel attacks. Novel attacks being tracker attack, where they could literally look exactly where people were looking in VR. Chaperone, removing the safety boundaries. Human joystick attack, being able to move the subject wherever they wanted. And finally, overlay attack, blocking your vision. Let me go over it quickly, one by one. So most of these virtual reality headsets have a front-facing camera. So what Abe's team was able to successfully do is turn on and off the camera without a subject's knowledge and stream the video feedback to their malicious server or the attacker. Look inside the room. So now think about privacy without the knowledge of the person. And every time you step into any kind of a virtual reality environment, you set up an imaginary boundary called the gradient boundary. What they were able to do is either expand it, shrink it, or completely disable it. And that's why the video where I was killing bugs with my friend is relevant, because so far we've only witnessed one death in Russia because of somebody stumbling from virtual reality, some kind of on some object and dying. And we would never know whether foul play was involved because we don't have these forensics research. Human joystick attack. So Abe's team was able to, what you see with the red dot at the bottom, and I wonder if I can point to it, no. So the green dot is literally where the subject is supposed to be. By manipulating these configurations, they were able to move the subject all the way across the room without their knowledge in multiple of these platforms, which is pretty profound. And finally, this overlay attack where they literally were able to overtake the vision. Think about this new form of ransomware, where an attacker would not really release this view until you pay X amount of Bitcoins. That could possibly happen. So we came up with 3 risk mitigation categories when we think about VR technologies. Is we need to protect the input and the output and any kind of a data that goes to either third party or whatever. We need to ensure that data is protected. We also need to ensure that user interaction, especially in a social VR setting, what happens if I can just send a malicious chat message? Or if I'm a developer of these technologies, what if I just embed some of these virtual objects with malicious code? You click it, and I have already initiated a worm-like scenario. And finally, the device protection. What about authentication on these devices? What if somebody else impersonates me or takes over these devices and does something malicious? So we need to think about these categories. And this is a clip from March 7, 2018. I was working at Linden Lab, and suddenly a colleague comes up and says, hey, you know what? All of these devices are bricked. Basically, there was a runtime error for a few minutes, and then within seconds I realized, first I thought, oh my God, it's happening. And then within a few seconds, I realized it's just somebody at Facebook forgot to update the firmware certificate, rendering these devices bricked for 24 hours. And these kinds of things could also be used as an attack vector. So at XRSI, This is precisely our mission, is to try to help build safe, immersive environments. And we are doing this via many, many different projects. One of the main projects that I'm very honored to announce here is XR Bug Bounty Program. Why here? Specifically because this industry needs security researchers. We need hackers to stay ahead of the bad guys. So we are working on building a XR Bug Bounty Program where you could actually hack virtual reality and report findings. And we would potentially gather those findings to do more work. We've also rolled out in November 3C information security framework that is still a work in progress, and any one of you can be a part of it by contacting XRSI because it's still ongoing. And finally, we're working with National Cybersecurity Alliance on their Stop, Think, Connect campaign because this is very important that we spread awareness of these risks. So we're helping them update the campaign Stop, Think, Connect. In 2020, when we do the Cybersecurity Awareness Month, you will start to see these kinds of new risks being promoted in terms of awareness. And this is what the 3C framework looks like, where we are now accounting for things that previously were not accounted for when people connect with each other in these environments. Why not we think about harassment, vandalism, defamation? These are risks that nobody in the security community talks about until something really bad happens, and even then, regulations are left behind. There are no laws. So this is our opportunity to address things that were not addressed in previous platforms. And think about what would happen when I use virtual reality or augmented reality to potentially order a pizza, or hey Siri, order me Uber. So the payment integrity now has to be kept, would have to be validated. And that's why it also incorporates compliance. So if you want to be a part of this bug bounty program, which I encourage all of you security researchers and hackers, please email bugbountyprogram@XRSI. And for any other projects, info@XRSI. And I'm going to conclude this with one saying from Mother Teresa. There are things that I can do that you can't. There are things that you can do that I can't. But together, we can do great things. Thank you.